Those statements are true. Hi again, everybody. It's 5 o'clock in New York. Viewers of this program know we do not just gratuitously platform lies about anyone, but especially judges, or intimidations or threats against them. But today we feel that we must show you that and call out harmful rhetoric when we see it. Donald Trump's vicious and ugly attacks against federal judges, as you saw in that sample of the many, many things he said and posted on social media. People who have been ruling against his actions, not from a partisan standpoint, but because they are illegal and unconstitutional, for the sole reason, in fact, that they believe the things he has sought to do in his first 120 days are unlawful. That tension continues to build. Trump even ratcheted up his attacks in a social media post marking, of all things, Memorial Day, calling out judges who he described as, quote, USA-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous for our country. He then called them, quote, monsters who want our country to go to hell, end quote. These are judges appointed by George W. Bush, Donald Trump, President Clinton, Obama, sorts of presidents from all sorts of parties, calling them, quote, monsters. This personal animosity and anger and the sentiment it is stoking is having immediate, direct, and serious effects on the actual members of the judiciary and their families. New York Times is out with some startling new reporting. Quote, in the 5-month period leading up to March 1st of this year, 80 individual judges have received threats. Then over the next 6 weeks, an additional 162 judges received threats, a dramatic increase. That spike in threats coincided with a flood of harsh rhetoric, often coming from Trump himself, criticizing judges who have ruled against the administration and in some cases calling on Congress to impeach them. To put that sad fact in perspective, the total number of judges threatened this fiscal year, 277, represents roughly 1/3 of the judiciary. The New York Times got these numbers from a face familiar to this program, Judge Esther Salas, who said she obtained them from the U.S. Marshals Service, which is tasked with overseeing security for the judiciary. But at the moment, there are questions about that arrangement. New reporting in the Wall Street Journal finds this, quote, some federal judges are beginning to discuss the idea of managing their own armed security force. The notion came up in a series of closed-door meetings in early March when a group of roughly 50 judges met in Washington for a semi-annual meeting of the Judicial Conference. Security Committee members at the conference worried that Trump could order the marshals to stand down in retaliation for a decision that didn't go his way. The Marshals Service denied that would happen, saying in a statement this, quote, the security of our federal judiciary is a cornerstone of our nation's democracy, and the marshals take that responsibility very seriously. Federal judges make hard decisions based on the rule of law, in large part because the marshals ensure they can make these decisions without fear, intimidation, or retaliation. Yet the idea that judges are even thinking about taking over their security operations and taking oversight of that into their own hands says volumes about where we are in our country right now. It's also where we start the hour with former federal judge Michael Luttig and U.S. District Court Judge for the District of New Jersey, Esther Salas. It's a privilege to be here with both of you at the same time. I think a lot of our coverage is shaped, Esther, by your sharing of what you went through when your son was murdered. I wonder if you can just level set this conversation with a reality check about what is happening right now to your peers in the judiciary.
Well, good evening, Nicole. Always a pleasure to see you, and of course, Judge Luttig. I honestly feel as if it's incumbent upon me as Daniel's mom to talk about the clear and present dangers that exist. I've talked to you on a number of occasions about my concerns with respect to the inflammatory rhetoric. I've talked to you about this concept of a bonfire that is just burning. And instead of us trying to squelch it or tamp it down, we're adding accelerants to it. And I continue to feel that way. But I think the numbers support the concern that I have been expressing. And that is that we are seeing these numbers rise. And, it is irresponsible for people in political power, irresponsible for people with power and large social media platforms to continue to use words that define judges as corrupt or partisan or monsters or leftist, crazy, unconstitutional judges when there's no basis for it, right? And I do believe that, it is necessary for me as Daniel's mom to come out and really speak up for justice, to speak up for the rule of law, to defend the Constitution. I feel it necessary now more than ever when I know what the numbers are saying and I know the risk. I live it every day. Mark lives it every day without our son. Our only child was murdered in our home because of my job. And so for me, as his mother and as an American and as a concerned citizen, I come forward sort of begging, pleading, and asking our political leaders to lead responsibly, And that doesn't mean agreeing with judges' rulings. Certainly, as Chief Justice Roberts said, there's always been some tension between the branches of government. There always has been. It's as old as the Republic. But there's a difference between disagreeing with a ruling and appealing it and utilizing the constitutional framework to appeal us to a higher court and making it personal and calling us names and really villainizing us. And I think it is an absolute dangerous road to be going on right now. And I am just praying that for our political leaders and those in power to tone it down. Disagree all you want, but please don't make it personal because you're inviting people to do us harm.
Esther, when you saw the message on Monday from the most powerful politician in our country calling judges, quote, monsters who want the country to, quote, go to hell, did you have any conversations with fellow judges who were scared or worried, or do you have any ongoing conversations with judges who worry about themselves and their families? I guess in most instances, they would worry more about their own children.
No, I've been worried for a long time. I've been worried since we started seeing members of Congress calling for impeachment of judges for doing their jobs. That was something that obviously I worried about. I've been worried about the words rogue judges. I mean, Chief Justice Roberts, he called these illegitimate attacks on the judiciary. He called it out in 2024 in his year-end report. He said 4 illegitimate attacks on the judiciary. Violence, we've seen that, right? We've seen Judge Romer killed by a man he sentenced 15 years earlier in Wisconsin. We've seen Judge Wilkinson gunned down in his driveway in Maryland in October of 2023. So violence, we've seen it. Intimidation, we're seeing it in the form of these pizza doxing that I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about, and how that's being used as psychological warfare against judges. So second was intimidation. Third was the spreading of disinformation. You keep saying over and over again, judges are unconstitutional, judges are rogues, judges are crazy leftist judges are monsters, judges are this, judges are that. You keep saying that over and over again, and after a while, the American public begins to believe that disinformation, and they begin to have and question the justice system. And so that is an illegitimate attack on judges, is the spreading of disinformation. And then finally, even the threatening to not follow lawfully issued orders by the court. These are 4 illegitimate attacks called out by our Chief Justice. And we see it, and we're seeing it in real time. And so for me, I'm here on your show yet again, sort of trying to appeal to people's senses and compassion and, civility and professionalism. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to speak up for justice, to speak up for events like tomorrow's event that we're having at noon, Eastern Standard Time, 9 Pacific. And we're talking about the independence of counsel tomorrow. We're going to keep doing these programs, nonpartisan programs, because we need to speak up for justice. We need to speak up for the rule of law. We need to defend our Constitution. And so, I've been worried for a long time. And, I'm reminded every day when I wake up and the first thing I think about is my Daniel. And the last thing I think about is my Daniel. So I am obviously very concerned for judges all throughout this country. And I just pray that we can start to get back to a place where we can agree to disagree, where we can have civil discourse, and we can all rally around the fact that we're Americans and we live in the greatest country, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world. That's what I'm hoping for, Nicole. That's what I'm hoping for.